In this unit, we're talking about roles and responsibilities within the organization. Now, Chapter 6 is in many ways a continuation of Chapter 5. In Chapter 5, we looked at how organizations come into being, the purposes they serve, their goals, and so on. Now we're going to look more specifically at the types of players within those organizations. Let's start with school boards. The section we read at the end of Chapter 5 on centralized versus decentralized decision making was important, so if you haven't read it, go back and give it a look-see. Although there has been a lot of centralized decision making of late, like federal and state educational laws, most decision making in education is still very decentralized. The power to create policies, to fund them, and to enforce them is at the local level. And that level is represented in the organization of education by each district's school board. So school boards have a tough time of things. They have to figure out how to balance the demands of the local community with the demands of the state and the U.S. Department of Education. They have to figure out how to fund the policies they put into place, which usually means levies or bonds. By the way, a levy is just a particular kind of tax, while a bond is a particular type of loan, just so you know the distinction between those two. Superintendents, now, once the school board has its policies in place, those policies are carried out through the superintendent's office. The superintendent is like the manager of the whole school system. Let's say that the school board has raised a certain amount of money for a new policy, like a new math curriculum at the elementary level. It's up to the superintendent's office, and usually one or more assistant superintendents, to figure out, first, which curriculum to purchase. Usually this decision is made before the school board even allots the funds, but the decision usually comes from a committee of parents and teachers and principals, all led by an assistant superintendent for curriculum instruction, or some title like that. Once the curriculum is funded, the superintendent's office also has to figure out how to budget the funds appropriately. So a bunch to a book publishing company for the new curriculum, and some to pay for teachers' professional development to learn how to teach the new curriculum, and so on. And there's usually an assistant superintendent for finance who handles that. Next up, principals. Principals are often referred to as the frontline managers, or as our book calls them, the school boss in the middle. Because while all those managerial decisions are being made at the superintendent's office, it's up to the principals to be the face of the new policy to teachers, parents, staff, and students. It's up to them to do things like schedule the fourth grade math teachers for a day of professional development with an expert on the new math curriculum. And of course, principals have to manage all the other aspects of the school that you're probably used to seeing. Scheduling classes, distributing students into classrooms, handling disciplinary issues, and so on. It's really hard for just one person to do this alone, and so a group of, oftentimes these tasks are delegated amongst a group of assistant principals and a registrar and school counselors and other support staff, who are also discussed in Chapter 6. Okay, teachers. The big kahuna of Chapter 6 discussion is on teachers. Why teachers teach, who becomes a teacher, how many teachers stay, and why others leave, and so on. And to understand teachers' roles and responsibilities, their identity, really, you need to consider the question, what makes a profession professional? Take a look at the section titled Professionals in the Educational System. Ingersoll and Perda identified those things that constitute a profession. Among them, a certain type of education or training, some kind of professional entrance exam like the bar exam for attorneys, and some way of keeping just any old Joe from becoming a part of the profession. That is to say, one of the distinctions of a profession is the ability to keep others out of the profession. After all, if anyone can join, what would make the profession special? Now, in many ways, these criteria also apply to teachers. After all, you generally have to have a college degree and teacher certification to become a teacher. But then take a look at some of the other characteristics of a profession, such as compensation level, meaning a good salary, authority over decision making, prestige, and occupational social standing. In many ways, teachers do not have these characteristics of a profession, and it has led some to characterize teachers as semi-professionals, a title that seems to marginalize teaching even further, in my opinion. So keep that in mind as you read the section of Chapter 6 that's on teachers. Think about it. What is a profession? Are teachers professionals? And so on. Be sure to take a look at Table 6.1, some interesting statistics there on teachers. Who is a teacher? Their average class sizes, and so on. And all these statistics over time. So you can see the changes that have been taking place in the teaching profession. Note also the section on role expectations for teachers, because being a teacher these days is a whole lot more than just teaching the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic, to students. Make sure you then read the section on support staff in the school, particularly on guidance counselors, which we talked about a little in last week's discussion. There's some interesting stuff to ponder about support staff when you read Chapter 6. There's a regular quiz and discussion this week, so be sure to get on those, and then I'll see you in the discussion forum for some more good chats. Have a great week.